the more consistent the child becomes in doing something, the more confident they become overall. Consistency actually builds confidence. And then confidence, as it builds, leads to even greater connection. Because when you're able to do things and you're confident and you're becoming more competent in the house and you're like contributing as a member of the family and your parents are pleased that this is going well, all of that's a virtuous cycle that then actually draws the family closer together.
Before we get started with today's episode, if you've been benefiting from OptumWorks' approach, I wanted to let you know that we now offer live workshops for companies, universities, and schools designed to help your team reframe stress, build focus, and grow through challenge. You can choose from our set of proven topics or request a custom session, either in person or virtual. To bring OptumWork to your organization, send us an email at team@optumwork.com or fill out an interest form on optumwork.com/organizations. Now let's get started with the episode. Hey, this is Sharif, here with another episode of the OptumWork podcast, joined by Dr. Kevin Majeres. Kevin, good to be back here with you again.
Sharif, it's great to be back. Thanks so much.
Yeah, Kevin, well, this series on parenting has been going super well, and I hear from a lot of people in person how helpful it's been, so I think we're onto something. But now we have covered the main aspects of the theory of parenting, the three key qualities: connection, confidence, and consistency. So if you're tuning in and you're unfamiliar with those, listen to the past 5 episodes. But now we've been getting lots of questions coming in, and so I thought it would be great for us to cover some of these questions now that we've already discussed the main elements of the approach.
Sounds great. I'm ready to
dive
jump
in. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to be reading off to the side here. So here's a question. Is there any way for parents of young adult children still living at home to undo at least some of the damage of having gratified too many desires and failed in the area of helping them overcome challenges at a younger age? Or do we just have to accept the mistakes we made and let our older children work out the consequences on their own?
Well, I feel like I can kind of hear the dynorphins in the question. And my guess is that will happen a lot. That you can tell that there's a kind of recognition that this person is making and is really, I think, displaying a lot of courage in saying, okay, there's all, maybe one thing is that they're not really leaving their kids on their own. They're still with them. And the story of their relationship with their children and how they're shaping them is not done. And I think this is one of the most beautiful things about the literature in parenting. Essentially, it's never too late to start. It's never too late to be developing deeper connections with your kids or to help be shaping, the kind of expectations that they can have for how they engage challenges in life by developing the skills and ideals. I think those things are, even if you don't have the consistent practices of the home as much, you are still the one to help them through painful moments and help them to aim high. So I would say it's, it's never a question in parenting of having done like the perfect job or being the perfect parent. And there's something very beautiful that parents can model by changing approaches based on new things they've been learning. And if, I don't think that anyone would have to say, I'm sorry, I raised you completely the wrong way, because I'm sure there's a lot of love in it, and I think it's just a matter of modeling in a way that, hey, this is some things I'm learning. This is how I'm trying to apply, and to see if the kids can also be interested in applying these kind of new lessons. So I'd be very optimistic. As long as the bond is strong, it's never too late. And even if the bond isn't that strong right now, it's never too late to build it.
Yeah, and I was thinking that if you're in this situation where you have an older child who you maybe weren't practicing some of these things, that it's almost just like, okay, now start applying the approach. Because I was like, well, you never want to have a negative attitude, thinking, okay, they're just stuck this way or they're fixed this way. There's nothing I can do or
That's
whatever.
right.
You always want to have this confidence that, okay, now I can help them overcome the challenges that they're facing. And then to do that requires this kind of connection. So I would say still, right, it's just applying the same approach, just starting now.
Yeah, that's right. And you could see that, children are people. I think parents often have this terrible fear that they've somehow ruined their children. They lose it once, they lose their temper, and they think, oh no, now. But I think there is a process of rupture and repair that's really important. It's not exactly the point here, but just to say, even if a person was, said some things that they really wouldn't want to say, and now they really regret it. Well, that still gives a chance to now repair afterwards and to admit what was wrong. So I think that if the parent can be modeling honest reflection and owning mistakes, well, that's a wonderful gift. And adult children will still learn from that.
Mm-hmm. And okay, well, for your optimism, Kevin, we have another kind of related question, although I gather that this one is now focused more on the skills as a parent as opposed to looking at the effect on the child. So here it is. Where do I start to turn the ship around after setting up so many bad habits for so long? I find myself getting reactive or flippant, damaging our bonds, and I want so badly to treat them better than I do.
Yeah, I think this is a very beautiful question. This is where growth begins. People can admit where they want to be changing and do a real inventory of what needs to change. And it's easy at that moment to be overwhelmed and to think there's where do I even get started? And I would tell the person, if I were, talking to them, that let's just focus on one thing you would like to do better. Instead of thinking of a golden hour, for instance, let's think of a golden moment. Let's just think of a practice that, is there some recurring pain point that happens with your children, that ideally every day comes up in some way? And it's like we were talking to one person, I remember in a public lecture that you and I were giving, a public podcast we gave once in Dallas. And there's the question about someone who felt that every day at 5 p.m., they just totally lose their patience. So, and I think that when you can detect that there are these recurring patterns, that's the perfect time to practice reframing and mindfulness and embracing the pain that will come then. And so if you can name, what is one moment that there's a stress point that happens predictably, and then think of how, when it occurs, you can welcome what is painful about it and welcome the entire triggering as the best opportunity for you to start changing, to you to start growing. And think, okay, in that moment then, how do I really go into it? Not hoping it doesn't happen, but instead welcoming it to go as difficult as it can get. A little bit of pre-framing goes a long way. So you can be thinking in advance. But this is the beauty of recurring challenges. Recurring challenges can be reframed in advance until you feel like you've really arrived at not just the ideal of I want to be more connected, which is great, but also particular skills you want to be practicing. Be very concrete about it. This is one of the things that we designed the reframer and optimal work to help people do, is you just put in that pain point in the reframer, and it will walk you through identifying what's most painful about it, what is a very practical skill that directly addresses that, and then what's the ideal that gives it life. So it's a wonderful way of working through any challenge.
Yeah. And it can also be, if people have an established time in the morning of meditation or prayer, that they'd also maybe bring this topic there and try to affirm their commitment to live the ideal.
Yeah, to be in advance, looking forward to the day and how it can bring out your best. I think that's really important. Also, I think there is maybe in no area of life are people so tough on themselves than when it comes to parenting. So you should just expect that when you think about changing any parenting practice, feeling overwhelmed by guilt or shame is totally normal. And so this is why many parents never try to improve, right? Because they're afraid of getting overwhelmed if they start opening up that box. And they just don't want to be thinking about all the ways they failed as a parent. Well, the good news is you don't have to like be beating yourself up over all the ways you might have failed. The key is identify one way you want to be doing better today, and then strive to do that. And I think in doing that, you are like, the children will notice. They'll see that something else, like instead of this normal trigger working, because kids are great at knowing what pushes buttons, they'll see you're responding in a more loving way, and that will be a wonderful lesson for them. If they can see that adults can change. I've had this great benefit in my practice of working with adults who have had total transformations. And then the children, their adult children, notice it, and they also have transformations. Because they saw that, wow, if mom or dad is able to like change in such a huge way, like they weren't able to drive before, now they can drive and they're adventurous again. Well, then the kids can see that, well, I can change too. So modeling that you can change and improve is actually one of the very best gifts you can give your kids.
That's great. Well, Kevin, our next question is still along these lines, but now focused on anxiety. So what can parents do when they realize, after years of doing their best, that their parenting style may have unintentionally reinforced anxiety in their children? Is it worth changing course after so many years? And if so, how can they begin without becoming overwhelmed by the feeling of needing to undo 10 or 15 years of bad habits?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, you don't really have to undo 10 or 15 years. What you have to do is look for opportunities now to lessen your accommodation and show more confidence in your children's ability to engage the challenge, to connect with them more deeply. So if you can just choose one area, so let's say there are many problem areas, and just choose one. It could be meal times. It could be bedtime. Choose one area where you're going to start to be being more compassionate with the child who's having a tough time, and then express your confidence that they can practice some way of getting through this. There's some way here that they can do it. And then no accommodation. Start to just in that one area, no longer give in. Eli Lebowitz, in his space program at Yale Medical School, has shown that no matter how long the anxiety has been going on or the bad habits of accommodation have been going on, those 3 steps, to be connecting, to be confident, and to have no accommodation, which we call consistency, those 3 steps can turn things around regardless of the length of time it's been. So I would just say, it's not, again, children are not fixed in their anxieties, and they can learn how to start growing again, but choose one area.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, okay. The next question is one, that maybe I didn't, I think we kind of hit on this topic a couple of times in previous episodes, but maybe it was good to get a full explanation of it. So fostering connection with children in a large family. I have 7. Mm-hmm. Connecting and redirecting when children are reacting strongly in anger. And then also, if you have any book recommendations to do a deeper dive on this topic.
Yeah. I think that for larger families, it may not be possible for the parents really to have a whole lot of one-on-one time. So the ideal thing is that you can have at least 5 minutes of one-on-one. And if a child has anxiety disorder, doing 5 minutes is enough. It's called parent-child interaction therapy, but it's been shown to be enough to help children through anxiety disorders. So even cases of very severe OCD have responded to 5 minutes of undivided attention. The book on that is called Growing Up Brave by Donna Pincus. Okay, that's like the good foundation. But if it's not feasible for a given family for the parents to be able to do that, then family rituals will make up for it. That there are times when the family is all together. There's special family time. And in that time, you're practicing having undivided attention for the whole family. Everyone is like willing to listen and talk to each other. And ordinarily, this is the family meal, the dinner time. And so if there are good rituals about meals and about bedtime, and And when you can, one-on-one special time, I think that would largely be enough. And then other, good books that I recommend a lot. 1, 2, 3 Magic by Thomas Phelan is great. The Whole Brain Child by Dan Siegel is another wonderful parenting book. I like a lot of Dan Siegel's books. He also has Parenting from the Inside Out. Anyway, so those are a few really good, solid parenting books.
Yeah, great. Kevin, just to follow up on that with my own question is, if you're thinking about parenting and, you have multiple children, it, occurs to me that, you can affect the younger ones. I mean, the older ones are going to affect the younger ones, right? So it's not just about, okay, what am I doing to give attention to the younger ones or to all of them, but also like the way you deal with the older ones is then they're going to pass that on to the younger ones. So it's, how do you harness, the goodness of your older children to then help in the raising of the younger children? Does that just happen automatically? Or?
Yeah. And I think that this is where the rituals are so helpful, so that there could be a game night that the family has. And maybe if you're just starting to have game night, the younger ones will, not know how to lose. So you're gonna have to help them to develop the skills of losing with graciousness. And so there could be things where if the family can have these enjoyable things together, that is going to help the bonds among the siblings to develop, and that will make everything easier. So, it's good that, the oldest, when they're young, they have their parents' undivided attention, and hopefully that instills then so much of, already the consistent practices, that the family is trying to develop, so that the other younger kids just naturally get brought into it. But again, it's never too late to start, and you might have to talk to the older kids and about the importance of, this is like at a calm moment, not as a way of disciplining, but talk to them and to see like what they think the younger child needs more of, and be brainstorming with the older ones to see what can we do to help this one more in this area, and so that they feel like they're not just like consumers of the family culture, but they're the creators of the family tone.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, Kevin, now a tough question. So does the concept of connection still apply when parenting older kids? Or is there a time when the connection becomes something that happens after the redirect? So we talk about connect and then redirect, or does it should it be for older kids, redirect and then connect? And then, for instance, my instinct is to come down hard and fast with a 15-year-old not doing chores. So it's a very tough question.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a little, just a little point here to make before going a little deeper into it. The context here matters a lot. Was it a 15-year-old? So if the 15-year-old is never doing their chores, so this is a recurring, perhaps highly fraught problem, that's a very different issue than if this is not, like, this is basically a kind of uncommon or low stakes occurrence. If it is something low stakes, you can always just have some business-like reminder. Like, okay, put the trash out, and then we'll start the movie. So, but it's just, you can be business-like and very direct. So I don't think in those moments you have to turn connecting into an event. Like, okay, now we're going to spend, time connecting, even though connecting doesn't take that long. So yeah, by all means, low stakes, one-offs, then you just handle that very business-like. Okay, there's something else though that happens if this is a recurring issue. And the problem with that is the problem of reminding children to do something. Reminding is not really helping the child to become consistent. The real goal of consistency is that the child has taken ownership of whatever it is, and they've internalized it. They now have intrinsic motivation. And so they're thinking about how to make this their own. And if they need reminders, they're coming up with reminders. So the pitfall here is that If the parent is doing the reminding and that becomes a necessary sequence in the chore being done, then really it's the parent becoming more consistent, but not the child. So we could maybe we call that pseudo consistency. It looks like consistency, but there's a lot of upkeep in that. And it is grating on the parent. Their nerves get frayed. It's grating on the child, but it works. And so this is the problem with reminding, children of anything, is that it often works. But the child can develop adverse reliance on the reminder. And now, unless you remind, it doesn't happen. So there is a skill of remembering and acting without being reminded that is necessary for being an adult. And the younger the children can learn this, the better. Setting up, so you can brainstorm with them at some other moment, like what would be a good reminder system to do this, so that you can think through it, so that maybe there's something that they always tie it to. But chronic reminding, it doesn't really work. It leaves everyone frustrated. It frays the bond. So I know we can think more about what are and for a 15-year-old, it seems that what you need is a rhythm or a ritual to get into. That it's just a natural thing that they always do the chore right when they get home from school. And then they can have a snack, and then they do their homework or something. There needs to be some regular rhythm that they build in. But if they're 15 years old, they should take enough ownership to be kind of thinking through it. The goal is for your ideals and values to be internalized, but that requires free action. That requires this intrinsic motivation from the child.
Yeah, and I'm just. Again, let me add my own follow-up, and then, it seems like as a child gets older, that it shifts what you're going for. Like with a younger child, maybe they don't know the family rules, and so you're teaching them, okay, these are the family rules. But then as a child gets older, it's like when they don't do it, they're more knowingly disobeying or disregarding the family rules. So it seems like, and maybe that's a little bit why this parent would be tempted to come down hard and fast on the child. It's like, okay, because he's deliberately not doing what he knows he's supposed to be doing. So I don't know if there's you handle that differently or.
Yeah. So I think, is what you're going for compliance, or is it growth and skills and ideals, and ultimately within your bond with the child? So there needs to be the sense that there are skills and ideals that you're teaching them. The skill could be using a reminder app. If they're 15 years old, maybe there's a computer or a phone, or they have something that an alarm can go off. They need to be the ones to help think of it and then to do it, so that it just becomes built in. But to think of it in terms of skills. And again, the reframer on optimal work, if you say, I'm trying to help my 15-year-old with this, it will help you think through a variety of skills that you could help the 15-year-old to learn. Helping them to learn a skill, that's not, I think that is always doable. And maybe not in the moment they're in a really bad mood, but later. The other thing is that connection and confidence and consistency, these are all reinforcing of each other. So one of the best ways to help boost consistency is to boost connection. If you do that and you work on the bond and really strengthening the bond, it can much more naturally happen that they take your priorities and make them their own. So that would be the high road. The high road is that the bond is like going down into these concrete chores and they're remembering to do things. But the low road is actually building skills. I don't think the low road is yelling at them. So I don't think, so the low road is just being granular and building skills. The more consistent the child becomes in doing something, the more confident they become overall. So consistency actually builds confidence. And then confidence, as it builds, leads to even greater connection. Because you start to When you're able to do things and you're confident and you're becoming more competent in the house and you're like contributing as a member of the family and your parents are pleased that this is going well, all of that's a virtuous cycle that then actually draws the family closer together. So it's never going to be perfect, but it's easy to, you can see that, the more children are growing in skills and living ideals, the more the parents actually really enjoy being around them and appreciate how much they're growing. And then the more confident the parents are in what they're doing with their family. It's just a virtuous cycle. Everything reinforces itself.
Yeah. Well, that's great, Kevin. A very optimistic note for us to end on because we're basically out of time here. But we do have a lot more questions. So maybe we'll take more questions and even get more questions for next week's episode.
Wonderful. That sounds great. Until next week then.
All right. Thanks so much, Kevin. We'll be back. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed our conversation and you're looking for more in-depth guidance, check out optimwork.com, our unique platform that delivers content, tools, and exercises to help you thrive at work and beyond.